So, let's talk Ogkils LD1000z. So, as you can see behind me, I already have a 700. So, I will be reviewing, some of the other racks from Ogkils. So, stay tuned if this is what you're interested in. But yeah, let's talk about this racket. So, as there is not a single English YouTube video that I've seen, I'm going to go very in-depth in this first review at least. So, bear with me for people that are just wanting to hear what I think about it. Please, just skip ahead if you'd like. But Ogkils is essentially, from my understanding, a Chinese brand that takes molds of existing rackets and recreates them. So, as the name suggests, Ogkils LD1000z is a duplicate, a copy. I don't know what the exact terminology here would be of the NanoFlare 1000z, right? Let me get my 1000z here. So, what that means is, right, same handle length, same shaft length, right, same shaft thickness, right, the same wide body, the same recessed frames, the same grommet layout, the same head weight, everything, right? So, in theory, this should play very close to the real thing, the 1000z, but NanoFlare, right? And the best part, right, is this is, I think, around, in pesos, no, this is $2. I think this is like around $100, maybe 110, around $90, somewhere in that range. So, like half the price of the real thing, but better than half the performance. That's definitely for sure. But yeah, let's talk about this, because there is a lot to talk about. So off the bat, my first experience with this was not actually pleasant. So it was weirdly and annoyingly inconsistent in its hitting, meaning that if it was in the sweet spot, like perfect, yeah, it felt pretty bang on to what I'm expecting as a 1000Z user, right? But the moment you are slightly off center, it feels like brick. It feels like 800 Pro, just no feedback, just dead. Like, is my string dead? Very confused look, like no, what's the word like here? No forgiveness. And the 1000Z is not is not known to be a forgiving racket, but this took it to a whole nother level. So that was the most annoying thing to, I guess, get used to. I think as I played more and more with this racket during my testing, I was getting a bit more used to its timing, which is ever so slightly different because it's a different racket. And so that didn't happen as often, and I kind of got used to that, I guess, feeling of brick every time you didn't hit the sweet spot. So it wasn't the end of the world. So let's talk about, speed. I think that's probably the most exciting aspect about this. Yes, this racket is fast. It swings like the 1000Z. The handling is great on the defense, the drive defense, the quick off the body defense, front court interception, mid court drives, the flat game, right? Absolutely no complaints and no, I guess, comparisons. No real, the 1000Z is noticeably better than this. This definitely is in that same kind of category of speed. So for me, this definitely gets a pass in the speed category. So for power, I think this is a bit interesting. So technically, I assumed that this would have the same shaft, I guess, stiffness as the original or the real 1000Z. But for me, this is a little bit flexier than the 1000Z. And also, I think the head is not as stiff as the 1000Z. So let me explain, because I don't know if I'm using the right words here. So for me, when I'm using the 1000Z and the shuttle comes off of the string bed, it's a very solid pushback, right? The head doesn't feel like it's deforming. It just feels like the shuttle came and then it went, right? Very consistent, very solid, right? With the LD1000Z, I'm feeling a little bit of head deformation when I hit. So I feel like almost it feels like the head is crumpling in. I don't know why it feels like that. Maybe, the string bed is softer, or maybe it's because there's no speed assist bumper, but that's the feeling. The head hitting feel is not as solid as it is on the original 1000Z. Again, this for me was not a total annoyance, and I quickly got used to it, and it became a non-issue after the first 2 hours of playing. But it is something to note. Head weight wise, I think they are about the same. I say question mark because obviously the 1000Z is a bit faster, but I don't know if that's just because it's the real thing, or because this is actually a little bit heavier, or the 1000Z is actually a bit head lighter. But I would say, like, you know, the head balance does feel around the same. It performs about the same. You know, power comes out quite well in the back if you know, adjusted to the swing speed of a headlight racket. So yeah, that's what I would say about the head weight. So when it comes to just kind of like my general thoughts, now that we've kind of discussed like power and speed and head balance, I am very pleased with this actually, because right, it's close enough to the 1000Z that, you know, I'm not looking for something else in my club games, and you know, when I clash with someone else, I'm not freaking out because it's cheaper. So you know, if I do clash with someone else and this does break, oh well, you know, it still sucks that a racket broke, but it's not, you know, as expensive as me going to buy another, you know, a real 1000Z or getting it repaired in China, which takes excuse me, which takes like weeks if not months. So totally can recommend buying this, especially if you don't have the budget for the 1000Z or the 1000 Tour. I think this is a little bit cheaper than the 1000 Tour, and I think it performs on par, if not slightly better than that. So yeah, one interesting note is I will probably do a follow-up video where I replace the grommets on this with like official grommets from the NanoFlare 1000Z, because remember, the speed assist bumper, all it is just a row of connected like grommets here and here. And if they have the same grommet layout, which they do because it's from the same mold, in theory you should just be able to replace the grommets, add a speed assist bumper on here, and narrow the difference between the LD1000Z with the real one even closer, which should be very exciting. I have some grommets that I ordered a while back. So tomorrow, the day after filming this, I probably will go get this strung, or restrung, excuse me, and have the new grommets added, and then, you know, probably make a follow-up video for that. So stay tuned, because my rating for the LD1000Z might increase from then. But for right now, right, as this stands, I think the closest racket I can compare this to is like a head-heavy version, a stiffer version of the Assailant Pro. So the Assailant Pro is a racket from Apex, which is a very swift, head-heavy racket with a lot of repulsion, right? For me, it's the most repulsive racket that I've come across outside of the 1000Z. So this kind of feels like that. My main issue with the Assailant Pro was that sometimes the shots were not as solid as I would like, and it's actually one of the very few rackets I preferred in 3U over 4U, because the 4U just felt so inconsistently fast sometimes, okay? So this feels like a more solid version of the Assailant Pro, which for me is, I think, quite high praise. I quite enjoyed, you know, that kind of archetype of a racket, like fast, speedy, offensive, with good touch. And this kind of nails that, right? All the things I liked about the 1000Z, just a tiny bit watered down. I say 80%, 75% of the way to being an actual 1000Z. So to recap, right, Ogkils makes molds of rackets. This is their 4U, a G5, or I think G5 model. They also do make a 3U version of the 1000Z, but this is the 4U version. And most of their rackets are usually like at half of the price of what they're copying. So again, this was like around $100. The NanoFlare 1000Z, at least here in the Philippines, is around $200, $210. So I think maybe more even. But yeah, if you buy in the mall, it's closer to $300, which is fucking insane. But let's not talk about that. So would I recommend this? I don't know if I said this already, but yes, definitely. Ogkils is a very interesting brand. I think a lot of club players that are, you know, obsessed about having a high-end Apex racket, or sorry, Yonex racket, should just get, you know, a couple of these instead. For the price of one Yonex racket, you can buy like 2 of these. I think Initial Yi, shout out to him, said that, and that's very good, like, value proposition. If you're just a club player, you want something good, but you don't really need the best of the best, I would most definitely buy 2 of these over one 1000Z, you know, if I was in that boat. So yeah, there you have it. That's the Ogkils LD1000Z. Very fast, very fun to play, and very surprised by its performance for its price. So stick around. We'll be making more Ogkils content, so just like and subscribe, you know, the usual yada yada yada. See ya.